Guys, this is Mark. In this video, I'll be talking about the row component in UI Builder. The row component is somewhat specialized because it can live only in the context of the container component. You cannot add row anywhere else. You can add rows only to containers. To start exploring what row container is about, I'm going to drag a container component. Naturally, it includes one row, and that row has a cell. And in this video, I'll be focusing just on the row component and will demonstrate its capabilities. The row component, from the visualization perspective, you can assign a background color, you can apply some dimensions such as height, minimum height, and maximum height. So from the visualization perspective, as you can see, it is rather poor because all you can do is just modify the background color. However, what you can do is you can, if you need to have more advanced visualizations, you can expand the cell to take up the entire width. You can add block, and that will be a separate video, block component to your cell, and block has a lot more ways to be customized with borders and shadows and paddings and so on. But that's going to be a subject of a separate video. In here, we just want to focus on the row component. As I talked about the rows in the container component video, and you can see the link on your screen right now to explore the container component. Row has cell, and you can have multiple cells in a row. There are 12 positions in a row. If you want all the cells to be within the same row, there are 12 positions, and the width of the cell can control that. So here I have my cell selected, and as you can see in the width, there are 12 positions that this, or different widths really rather than positions, that this cell can occupy. In here you can have multiple cells, and if you want them all to fit in the same row, then you need to work with ratios just to make sure that it's going to be one whole. It is also possible that cells within the same row can spread over multiple lines. So for instance, if you have some content that you just need to keep adding to that row, then as soon as it reaches the end, it will kind of go to the next line and it will be replicated. This may sound somewhat confusing, but I will demonstrate this in action and you will see exactly how it works. The row, just like the container, the row itself can also have dynamic list behavior. What this means is that whatever the content that you assign to that row, if the row has dynamic list behavior, that content becomes a template. And then when you assign a collection of objects to the data model of that row, then the template will be replicated for each object in the data model. I will demonstrate this at perhaps the most visual and yet the simplistic example that I came up with. So what we are going to do to demonstrate dynamic list behavior for the row, we're going to build a super simple image gallery. What I did to prepare for this video in my backend, I created a folder called pictures, and there are three subfolders: food, nature, and people. And in each of these directories, there are just a bunch of pictures that correspond to the directory name. So these are all the food pictures, and here is just going to be a bunch of nature, and likewise for people it's going to be just pictures, images of people. What I want to do in this demo, I want to create an example where I just fetch all the images and I use a single row and I replicate the cell over multiple lines to create an image gallery. So that's going to be our task. And to do this, first of all, I will modify the width of the cell to be the smallest possible, 112. And I will drag the image component into my cell right here. I can also modify the dimensions of this image to be a little bit smaller. So for instance, let's say it's going to be 50 pixels wide. Actually, it's a little bit too small. How about we go with 80? That's pretty good. So 80 pixels. And of course, the row itself should have dynamic list behavior, just like this. and we will assign the ID for that row. It's going to be pics gallery. Okay, so what's going to happen is I will fetch information about the images using an API called backendless. And that collection will be just an array of objects. Each of those objects will have a URL of the image, and I will just assign that URL to the image. So what's going to happen is row, being a component which has dynamic list behavior enabled, will start replicating this image left to right, top to bottom, until it visualizes all the objects in that collection. And it's kind of the most simplified way of building an image gallery, because you will see the level of effort that is required to implement this is going to be remarkably small. We will go to page to fetch the data, and in here it's going to be in the page enter event, and in here if we scroll down to the backendless section and see under file API, there is going to be a block get directory listing. Okay, so that will return a collection of objects where each object represents information about a file, and that will become our data model. To assign the data model under UI library in dynamic list, there is a block set dynamic items to, and as you can see, pics gallery. The pics gallery here is selected only because there is only one object, one row that is marked as dynamic list behavior object, or component. Really, it's not really an object. So we will be fetching data from a directory called pictures. We are interested only in JPEG files, and we will include subdirectories. So it will just scan the entire hierarchy of those of that directory, and will bring everything back to us. Before we apply the logic to actually render this data, let's run this page just to see what comes back from the server, which is always a good practice whenever you work with APIs. So we'll go into the preview. The page loads, and we would like to see the actual API traffic. So I will open up and go to the network and reload. And in here, this is the API call that fetches all the pictures. So as you can see, this is what comes back from the server. Open one of them, and these are individual properties. Okay, so in these properties, notice that one of them says public URL, and it's a full URL of the picture. So what we want to do is in for the image that we have in our row, it needs to be bound to the public URL property. Let's do that right now. Go to image, open up the logic, and the source URL logic, it will be public URL. That's all it really takes. And now if we reload this page, as you can see, now we have our image gallery. So every single picture that is sitting in that directory is now rendered. The cool thing about it is that every single line of images that you see here is really just one row. So the entire 4 lines, in this case we have 4 lines. These are the cells that are being replicated over and over and over by our row, which has the dynamic list behavior. As soon as it reaches 12, and let's just make sure, so there's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there are 12, of course, there are 12 positions in a row. We talked about it in the container video. So as soon as it reaches 12, then it moves on to the next line until it renders all of them. So this is pretty much it of what I wanted to show you. Other videos, and you will see links to those at the end of this video, will demonstrate some more advanced ways of rendering these image galleries. But of course, that's going to be a subject of a separate video because I want to keep them small, just so they are focused on just one thing that teaches you how to use UI Builder for doing something very specific. I hope you found this useful. Thank you, and as always, happy coding.